Okay, and welcome to the first episode of our How to Get Rich series on freelancing. The TLDR, the short version is freelancing probably isn't going to make you rich, and I'll see you next week. All right, or not. But this episode, we're going to dive into freelancing, how it is as a way to make money, how it might make you rich in the long term, and ways in which we could, adapt that and modify it to potentially make you rich. So, freelancing is probably the fastest way for someone without money to make their first $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 online. It probably won't make most of you rich long term unless you have a skill set which is up there or you turn it into an agency business, which we'll be discussing in the future. But most people are selling the wrong thing. So I want to dive deep into this. We're going to rate it. I'm going to show you how it works, tell you about how it works, and yeah, we're just going to discuss it in a live stream format. So if you're watching along, do feel free to type your message and your question below. If you're watching the replay, please type your question below still. I'll make sure the team checks on it, and I will get back to you. So without further ado, let's dive deep into freelancing. So we've got metrics. When we do the replay of this, we'll have them appear right here, but this is a live stream. So metrics, first metric of will it make you rich? Speed to first dollar, like speed to first pound, dollar, euro. How long is it going to take to make your first dollar? This is probably the fastest one because all you need is a laptop, some email, maybe going to an event. You could make your first dollar within the first few days, especially if you use one of these platforms. Startup cost, I mean, there's no startup cost. It's just your time. Your time obviously is valuable, but the less money you have, the less valuable your time really is right now. Skill requirements. So first we're going to do speed to first dollar, startup cost, skill requirements, scalability, risk, and then we're going to down a bunch of other stuff. So skill requirements is interesting. So there are freelancing jobs you could go into with pretty much no specific experience. This could be like admin, data entry, stuff that just comes as like a general knowledge. And there's also very specific freelancing stuff, which is like, I do this within this industry, and that would need extreme knowledge, but also more valuable. So it depends. Scalability, I'd give scalability of freelancing somewhere between 3 and 4 out of 10. It can be scaled, and I've met people making multiple six figures doing freelancing. That either requires your time or a team, and then we start turning into an agency. So actually, just the person making money, not so scalable apart from your time. And what's the most I've ever heard anyone get paid? $500 an hour. So yes, you can do 500 an hour, but usually that work is not work that can be done for more than 2, 3, 4 hours a day. So somewhat scalable. Risk, I mean, risk is time. Risk is your current burn rate, how much you're spending, and whether you can afford to do this. AI resistance, that's a big one, varies massively. And the ceiling heavily depends on your niche. So other things like lifestyle quality and possibility of success, it really depends on you. If you're like me and you live in Southeast Asia, if you're willing to live a cheaper lifestyle, which I used to when I first got here, things have increased a bit since then, but I used to when I first got here, then yeah, I mean, you can live whatever lifestyle you want. Um, on few hours. But if you don't have a high value skill set and you want to live somewhere expensive, then you're going to have to work a lot of hours. So we'll dive into that later. So, what it actually looks like. What we're going to do today is we're going to break down things like day to day life, client acquisition, stress, skill development, um, dealing with rejection, and then ramping up your income. So, day to day life of a freelancer. Um, I've never done straight freelancing. I've done coaching. I mean, coaching in some ways is freelancing. But with coaching, we go to specific outcomes with each client as opposed to them telling me exactly what to do. But it's similar. So, day to day life of a freelancer could be get up, drink a lot of coffee because you're going to be highly motivated today. Um, sit at your computer. If you've already got a job, would be to work on that job, whether you're doing hours based work or outcome based work. I would suggest outcome based work, but it depends again on the skill set. You start your timer, you time the work, you get the work done as efficiently as possible, message the client, do the work, and then carry on with your day. So it might be you do 2 to 3 hours of work in the morning, then you spend some time looking for more work if you do smaller projects, not bigger projects. And then in the afternoon, apply to some more jobs and carry on. So it's very similar, to be honest, to doing a day job, except that you might have multiple clients, like multiple bosses, and you have to log your time so that you can charge for your time if you're doing time-based freelancing. And most freelancing is time-based. If you were doing outcome-based stuff, then you'd be more of a consultant or a agency usually. So if it's time-based, you're literally just selling your time per hour for multiple clients. In order to get clients, so let's talk about client acquisition a bit as a freelancer. So if you're leveraging a skill set you already have, then you probably have a network already of people that might want to work with you as a freelancer. The cool thing about freelancing is that because the employer or the person you're working with doesn't have to pay your employment tax, holiday, health insurance if you're in the US, national insurance if you're in the UK, then you can charge more. So my experience in the UK contracting, which is actually that's probably the closest thing to freelancing work I've done, contracting work in the client's office, I could charge about 3 times the amount of money that I would as an employee, which is great because my motto and what I believe and what I teach to clients is the ultimate security is always cash in the bank. Like a job can always fire you if you don't do a good job. Um, Cash in the bank is there if you need runway. So rather than the security of a safe salary, you have the security of I can pay for my living for the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months. Anyway, so we've got that. So client acquisition. It might be people in your network you have already. That's the quickest way and the easiest way because you pass the sales gap. The sales gap being the gap of know, like, and trust. So if we want to pass the gap of know, like, and trust, go with people that already know, like, and trust you and can recommend you either to their company or to another company. If you don't have that, you can go to freelancing platforms such as Upwork, Fiverr. They tend to be very busy. It doesn't mean you can't stand out, but there's whole programs on how to apply to jobs through there, through video, through making yourself stand out. Then there's other professional networks if you're a member of a specific skill set or network. And then there's the old school way, which is old school. I mean, it's probably the best way to get higher value stuff rather than outside of your current network, which is the best way, would be outreach. So we'll do a whole episode on outreach and how to get clients, but finding companies you want to work for, reaching out in a way, collaborative, polite way, so that they respond, and then you can book in calls to help them, which does slightly, which is the start of an agency, to be honest, which is, because all an agency is a client acquisition system and a delivery mechanism. So if you can figure out client acquisition, you are so valuable because all the money, as you can imagine, comes from client acquisition. The actual delivery of the service is just the doing the work. And that's when you move out of freelancing into agency or other type of scalable work, because you're now moving from doing a job to building a system that finds work and delivers work, which is very different. But as I said, this is the fastest way to make a dollar. So client acquisition, stress. Um, I think stress depends, really. If you're starting out, you've got nothing in the bank, and your livelihood depends on the next contract and finding work this week, yeah, you're always going to be stressed. There is definitely stress in not having money, hence how to get rich. And for me, I mean, rich is just a word that is just a funny word, isn't it? But for me, wealth for me is when income and outgoings aren't connected. So you've got income over here and you've got outgoings over here, but there's no need to connect them because you've got enough money in the middle that it all buffers things out. You should be spending less than you're making unless you are financially free. Um, but yeah, money comes in this side into this pile of investments and money, and then money comes out the other side for living costs. That's how I called wealth, which is when the mindset shifts to okay, there's enough. We have enough. Let's just keep making more because it's fun. I enjoy the work. And as they say, if you're not enjoying it, you're not having fun. No. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Because if you're not enjoying it, you're definitely not having fun. Okay. So, skill development. Um, Skill development's an interesting one because it really depends on how long you stay in this stage. I think you got no money, get into freelancing, learn a specific skill set. If you're smart, young, and hungry, you could learn a really good skill set in 1 to 2 months, especially to fill a specific niche. Um, right now that would probably be so cliche. But AI implementation, learning about how AI systems integrate into bigger business, and all those things. Um, because that specific knowledge will allow you to sell your time for more expensive for more money than if you're just selling admin work. From that point, the skills I would develop would be business skills rather than specific skills in what you're doing. Because if you're good enough at what you're doing to continue to be paid and continue to be employed, then there's only going to be marginal increase in investing in that skill set. I would invest in the skill set of business. And for me, business is four verticals: um, sales, uh, product. Well, let's start with product or service. That's the thing. That's the thing you're getting paid for now. Finance, operations, play kind of together, sales, and marketing. And the number one skill you can develop if you're starting out in business, once you've got a basic service, is sales and marketing. So, how to get potential clients and how to convert the clients. If you can learn that, that is the most valuable skill that you will get. And also, part of marketing is how to package what you have as a sellable thing, a part of sales. So, how do you package what you have already, if it's admin work, copywriting, specific skill set, into something that people are willing to pay for an outcome so you can take your next step out of freelancing? So, yeah, I think my whole thing about skill development within freelancing is get good enough at the thing to be paid well for it, and then learn every skill that turns you into a real business or an agency around it, because that is the next step in order to both catapult your income and freedom. Because freedom comes from more income, but freedom also comes from you not having to do the actual work. You can do the selling to start with because selling takes less time and it's a more valuable skill set. And then eventually, if you make enough, you can outsource and hire people for the selling, freelancers, if you want to, and for the delivery. And you can just become a business, which is all it is a system that connects these people and runs these people. Make sense? Good. Um, Inconsistency in freelancing is a thing. I would be going for longer term contracts if possible. Like, you can do this when you become better at selling by just doing longer contracts. Say, hey, I'm willing to do a test. A test being 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. But after that, I only do longer contracts. I only do contracts of 3 to 6 months. If we do well in the first 1 to 2 weeks, would you be willing to commit to 3 to 6 months? Because that makes sense for me and means I can do it at a manageable rate. And once you've tested it, it's kind of a no risk thing for you. How does that sound to you? So, yeah, just massaging a bit into slightly longer contracts. Okay, so let's walk through some different scenarios. Any questions first? Feel free to type them below. I did have a question before about income ramp up. Almost this comes down to self belief. The difference between a $20 an hour freelancer and a $50 an hour freelancer is often just how much they charge. So it's getting to the point that you're comfortable saying, oh no, my rate is $50 an hour or $100 an hour or $200 an hour. A lot of sales is self belief and believing that we're worth it. And worth it as in we're not going to be rejected or shamed for saying this number. So a lot of it's in the head. It's a mental game as opposed to just a skill set game. The skill set game is the employment game. The business game, the freelancing game is a mental game of what number can I say and it still makes sense to me. And sometimes you just have to say the number a few times until you're comfortable with it, whether that's on a call or off a call. So, numbers breakdown. A beginner freelancer depends what country you're in. If you're in the Philippines or a developing country, maybe the initial target's not that high. Maybe it's $500 a month. And to do that, you could just be doing low skilled admin work through Upwork, Fiverr. You could be advertising yourself on LinkedIn. Just do basic stuff. And anyone can make $500 a month just doing basic stuff, especially if that's all your time. I mean, that's very little amount of money per hour. So just start out, go on Upwork, go on Fiverr, apply for admin work, get some feedback, and just work your way up. I've worked with freelancers who did that. I had a freelancer who started out at, not freelancer, she worked for me for a long time, but she started out for other people at $2 an hour or $3 an hour. By the time she finished working with me, she was making $1,500 a month, which in the Philippines is a great salary. Um, so that was great. She did that. She worked her way up, then got a intermediate role, which I think is a more niche specific, niche specialized role. So helping CEOs doing executive assistant work is very much more of a high level thing. And you need to be able to make strategic decisions, communicate well, be a higher level performer for this intermediate level work. This is usually niche specific if it's $2,000 to $5,000 a month in income. The niche specific stuff being potentially well, anything that requires specialized knowledge. Could be SEO, could be copywriting with AI. I mean, there's still opportunities in copywriting. People still are doing terrible jobs with AI. So there is an intermediary thing there for sure. Could be AI implementation, could be anything. Then, and the next level above that would be like high end consultant or fractional work. Fractional work would be the work of, say, a C suite person. So if you've got experience in business leadership, or you've got experience at a high level in a company, or you've just got experience, you're super technical at one thing, you can offer this kind of fractional C level person for people's businesses. So there's so many fractional CFOs out there, fractional CTOs, fractional AI engineers now. Um, CEO isn't usually fractional. Maybe there's a fractional operations director, something like that. You need to have strong positioning and you need to be able to talk with authority. And for me, authority doesn't mean overriding people, it means having an ethos. So the best people I've interviewed for leadership roles, for operations roles, are people that come to me and they say, "Oh, John, this is how I see the world. Like, this is how I see that we should lead people. This is how I see we should communicate. This is my ethos and the way that I see the world working, according to me." They're usually good at building systems. You can use a net, and this is where your network starts to bring people in. Because if you're good at this, you do it for a couple of people, you'll get referrals to other people in their network, and then it kind of spreads out over time. That makes sense? Okay, cool. So that's what else we got here. Case studies. Here's some interesting ones. So I already kind of shared with you one case study, someone who worked for me, and before they worked for me, they were earning like $2, $3 an hour because they'd moved from a semi-professional role into freelancing and they just wanted to get feedback and work their way up. When I hired her, I think she started at $700 a month working directly for me. Um, Over time, she proved herself so much, went from 700 to 800, 900, 1,000. And then because her knowledge was so specialized in my business, she then moved across up to 1,500, 1,600, $1,800 over the coming years because, yeah, she was then specialized, knew what she was doing, and she had real knowledge in my business at the time. Um, and that's just a freelancer who stayed in the freelance role but earned a lot more money. Another example, there's so many examples of this. One of my clients, I'm going to anonymize the industry and stuff because I would want to do that. But he started out after his last business getting into freelancing in a specific niche. He was charging per project, like $50 an hour, logging his time. And when I started working with him, he'd made, I think, $5,000 that month, which is great. $5,000 is a good start, and it's a great amount of money to be starting out, especially if you're spending 5,000 a month. That covers all expenses, especially if you have another earning person in your household. So after we started working together, we realized that actually what he was doing, it was this stuff, but the higher level stuff was strategic. And we repositioned from a freelancer into a fractional role, but doing the same work. So rather than charging per hour, the fractional role became a retainer because you're hiring his brain to be thinking about your business on a monthly basis. And what we did is he went from 5,000 a month doing freelance work to first closing a $4,000 a month retainer doing the same work, then a $5,000 a month retainer doing the same work, then a $3,000 a month retainer just for 2 meetings a month doing the strategic work, then another $4,000 or $5,000 retainer, basically going from $5,000 a month all the way up to $25,000 a month in a 4 or 5 month period, just through changing the offer and changing the positioning of the exact same thing. So that's the next step. It's going from selling time, if you're doing really good value, to selling outcome and thinking time, because you're selling to CEOs, people like me, like anyone else who's smart driven person, and what they need is outcome driven smart people on their team thinking. People they don't need to manage, people who are not really part of the company, so they're not having to be seen as an employee, but they're like a consultant or something like that. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. So, if you wanted to get into freelancing today, let's do the cheat sheet. The cheat sheet for getting into freelancing today. So, it is the 12th of June here in Vietnam, and I want to make money as a freelancer. Let's start out. Maybe I want to make money in the next 2 weeks. So I want to look at my skill set. Like, what have I done in the past? What's my technical experience? What specific knowledge do I have? What 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 experience? So what experience and qualifications do I have that make me stand out as different from somebody else? Hmm, good question. So once I've done that, I go, okay, these are my skills. Like, all right, from where I've been previously, where have I seen other freelancers? For me, it's like we're not reinventing the wheel here. I've got a skill set. I know it's as good as these people. They were making money. I've seen them do it in previous companies I've worked for. Could I go and do that? I probably can. So let's start with that. So let's list out what I've seen other people doing and look over there as well. So I've got all of my skill sets, what I've seen other people doing. Um, if I had no skills, I would start out by picking a problem, picking a pain point for other businesses. I'm not going to do that one here. I think that one's most people watching this will have had some technical experience and have some skill set. If you haven't got any technical experience or you want to do something brand new, first I would challenge you. Like, would you enjoy what you did previously if you were making 3 to 5 times the money? Probably a little bit. I'd still do that for 6 months to learn how to be a freelancer, but you can always learn a new skill. So you're making money. Making money. You got a skill set. You've got things that you've seen other people do. Okay, this is what I. Then you pick the skill set. You pick the painful problem, or you pick the what you've seen other people doing, and then you go to your network and you say, hey, um, I've just started freelancing. I've just started freelancing in this niche. We've worked together before. I was wondering if you knew if there are any opportunities at your business, our business name, for me to get involved. As I'm starting out, my rates are amazing. As you've seen, I do amazing work before. Do you personally know of any opportunities, or do you know anyone who might know of opportunities? So we're trying to bridge the gap for them to help us. Like we're, um, enlisting the help of those around us. Because most people don't want to see us fail. I'm saying that. Maybe maybe in corporate it's different, but mostly in the entrepreneurial world, people don't want to see us fail. So if they can help us, great. They might even tell us we're crazy. The first time I went freelancing when I was 25, I quit when I was 24 or 25. I think I was 25. The account exec came to me and sat me down in a room and said, "You're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy." I need to remember his name. I will. I'll look up his name and I'll see what he's up to now. But yeah, and he was right. To be honest, he was right at the time. I was crazy. I was unhappy, and if I hadn't done that, then my life wouldn't be like it is now because I wouldn't have taken the first step, which led to many, many more steps in the future. At that point, if nobody responds here, because it's my first time, I would go to Upwork, go to Fiverr, create profiles, start applying to jobs. There's a million YouTube videos on how to apply to jobs. Go and do that. Don't buy an expensive course on it. Find the stuff. Also, ask all the good AI models. Ask every AI model to tell you how to do it with references. Look, cross-reference them. Look at the references. Just do it. Um, and then get your first job. I know that sounds overly simplified. It maybe is. But the other thing you can do actually is go to in-person networking events in the industry-specific space that you're going for. Only if it's niche. Don't go to just entrepreneur events. You probably won't find anyone. They're all entrepreneurs who are trying to start something. But go to an industry-specific event. That's another great way of finding leads of potential work. If you have any questions about that, again, comment them below. So, biggest mistakes people make. This one's interesting. So, when I stepped into coaching, someone shared with me this story model maxim saying. It's called like the lamppost model. Most people spend all their time learning, all their time trying to be good enough to coach or to freelance or to do something new. And the problem with that is you only really ever learn by doing, like charging money, getting paid for what you do. Because if you do something for free or if you don't value yourself enough to charge for it, you get a different quality of client. So the lamppost model is that, say you're coaching. Um, the question is, if someone, or the maxim is, if you coach someone and they were talking to a lamppost for an hour, just talking about their problems out loud, what they're struggling with, what they want to work through out loud to the lamppost, they will make forward momentum because they've spoken out loud and they've started talking things through. Because a lot of the time we need to talk things through out loud. Are you better than a lamppost? And the answer obviously is, hopefully, yes, you are better than a lamppost. So you might as well start now. So biggest mistakes people make: learning forever and not starting. We need to start. We need to move forward. Being too generalistic is a big mistake. So I do everything. Like if you're all things to all people, you're cheap. You want to do a specific thing as much as possible, especially if you've got experience in it and you know people in it. Biggest mistakes: underpricing indefinitely. Like I said earlier, the difference between someone who makes $20 an hour and $50 an hour is that they charge $50 an hour. You just need to charge more until people start not converting. So just increase, increase, increase. Um, People should have to think about it before working with you, because the more they pay, the better results they'll get, which is actually true. At the same time, that's how the world works. Otherwise you can't afford the stuff that you want to do if you don't charge real money for what you're doing, because you're helping other people make money. So they need to make sure the business case works, and then you need to charge properly for your time. Relying entirely on platforms forever. Platforms will eventually not help you scale really high. Um, and potentially staying solo too long. Like freelancing, like we said at the start of this talk, of this live stream, is a stepping stone. If you're still freelancing in 3 years, then I would be stepping out of it. Um, Not because it's not a good way of making money, not because you couldn't do it forever, but because it's, unless you're getting fabulously wealthy and making way more than you spend, it's holding you back. You've learned the skill set, you know you can do it. Then it's the next thing to step into agency work or creating a real business, which is an agency work. So probably agency work. But we'll talk about that in a future episode of How to Get Rich. So, the final verdict of freelancing. Can you get rich from freelancing? Yes. And you need to be in a very niche, very specific skill set, and you need to like what you do because you need to do it for a long time. Unless you've got a specific skill set that you can be charging, I don't know, up to $1 million a year or $500,000 a year for, then maybe you can be free in a few years. But at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying it, you're doing it wrong. We don't get into business to do stuff we don't enjoy. So use it, great, make some money. Then think, what's the next step? And talk to your friends, YouTube, AI, me. We can all help you get to the next step. Will it make you rich? Sometimes will it make you wealthy? Only if you really enjoy it. Because for me, wealth is doing what you want to do. And like I said, having a disconnect between your income and outgoings, um, and having freedom. And if you're enjoying what you do, then you are experiencing freedom. But if you're not enjoying it, or you're not enjoying it more than you are enjoying it, then maybe it's time to move on. And is it the best first business online? Yeah, probably, possibly, yes. There are other good first businesses which we'll cover in future episodes. But yeah, I think it's a great way. So, who should do freelancing? Anyone with a specific skill set, anyone without much capital to start investing, anyone who wants to make money quickly, anyone who doesn't have ridiculously high expenses and not have a ridiculously high valued skill set, because that's going to stress you out a lot. But actually, it will anyway when you're starting a new business. Who shouldn't be doing it? People with real significant resources who have years in the bank or years in investments, people who are more generalists, people who don't want to people who don't want to deal with clients. They shouldn't do it. It's all about client management. Okay, so this was the first episode of How to Get Rich. Hopefully, you enjoyed it. Hopefully, there's some great clips that we're going to take from this. So, if you don't watch the whole thing, you'll see some clips. Um, if you've liked what you heard and you're interested in getting involved in freelancing, yeah, shoot me a message. I'll share you some resources. I don't usually coach people doing that, but more than happy to share resources. If you vibe with this series, DM me, let me know. So you like it, and actually share a business model you'd like me to do in the future. If anything resonated with you, please comment. As always, check out my website. It's just johncavendish.com, or DM me on any of the platforms. And yeah, have an amazing weekend, everyone, and see you next week for the next episode, which I don't remember what it will be yet. So look out for the ad, and we'll see you there. Thanks, everyone. Bye.